Who's your commander?
Good luck.
Equip.
Move to combat.
Resolves.
Now, before you attack
Does
me,
anyone have an answer?
well played.
Good game.
Hello everyone, my name is DJ, you're watching the Jumbo Commander YouTube channel, and we have a new Jumpstart 2022. And yes, there are some exciting new cards, but I am focused on the reprints because these reprints are exciting and they're gonna fit into so many Commander decks. Let's talk about the top 10 that you should be looking out for. First, I wanna give two honorable mentions. The first goes to Balin Wandering Knight. Balin Wandering Knight is 2 white for a 3/3 legendary cat knight. With first strike, Balin Wandering Knight has double strike as long as 2 or more equipment are attached to it. 1 and a white, attach all equipment you control to Balin. Now, Balin Wandering Knight is fantastic. I talked about how good it was in a short video, but the new version of this, like the anime version, is hilariously expensive. It's $47, the most expensive reprint in the set, and that's crazy. It's just crazy. I don't know what that price fluctuation is all about, but definitely worth a shout out. And you know what? Hopefully this reprint has brought down the price of the normal Balin Wandering Knight because it's a fantastic inclusion in any equipment deck. Just suck up all of those fantastic swords and evasion and smash your opponent out of nowhere. My next honorable mention is a little bit of a less expensive card, but another card I did a short on, and it's Vendilion Clique. It's another reprint. 1 blue for a 3/1 fairy wizard with flash flying, and when Vendilion Clique enters the battlefield, look at target player's hand. You may choose a non-land card from it. If you do, that player reveals the chosen card, puts it on the bottom of their library, then draws a card. This is so flexible, it's flashy, so you can deploy it whenever you need to, disrupt your opponent, loot yourself essentially, because you can target yourself, put an irrelevant card on the bottom and draw another. I mean, Vendilion Clique pressures your opponent in a lot of different ways, which is why I think it's super flexible. This used to be a very expensive card and now it's under $4. All right, let's start off with the real top 10, starting off with a card that should have been the most expensive, but Balin over there being $47, we have Rhystic Study, and Rhystic Study in very cool anime art. Rhystic Study is 2 and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may draw a card unless that pair plays 1. And this is coming in at just over $33, holding strong compared to the other printings of Rhystic Study. Now, what makes Rhystic Study good? Well, if you're taxing your opponent and they're always a mana behind on every single spell, you've kind of gone up a turn on them. And for 3 mana, that's pretty good. But that's not reality. People are gonna cast spells into your Rhystic Study, allowing you to draw cards. And the rate of drawing cards has gotta be like, you know, for 3 mana, I'd like to draw 3 cards. That'd be great. But Rhystic Study regularly draws you so many more cards. And one of the reasons why this price tag is so high is that it fits into tons of blue decks. It's one of the most popular and played blue cards, and it's really versatile. You know, it's reliably giving you card draws. So Rhystic Study is a staple, and that's why it's so expensive. And honestly, it belongs in many, many blue decks. Number 9, I want to talk about Seizen, Perverter of Truth. 3 black for a 6/5 legendary demon spirit. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player loses 2 life and draws 2 cards. This group slug strategy, I'm going to give you stuff, but I'm also going to charge you for it, is not quite group hug, and it's a fun strategy for Commander. I'm going to give you a bunch of resources, but I'm also going to tax you life. By the way, you also get to draw these cards. Seizen is really fun. Everyone gets more stuff to play with, but you take all that damage. I really like that this is a reprint because it was originally on Champions of Kamigawa. It was holding a price above $30, and now it's dropped down to under $15. I'm also really glad they didn't change the anime art on this because the original art is just super creepy and fun. This is going to go in black forced draw decks, so things like Shieldred and those new decks. It's also going to go in decks that do group slug, so something like Mogus God of Slaughter, where you're constantly attacking your opponent's life total and going after their resources. At number 8, we have a big green beater, Primordial Hydra. X green for a Hydra. Primordial Hydra enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, double the number of +1/+1 counters on Primordial Hydra. Primordial Hydra has trample as long as it has 10 or more +1/+1 counters on it. You can play this really low, and the way that doubling works is that it gets bigger exponentially. It gets way bigger, way faster. And so you just have to sink a little bit of mana into this, have some X synergies, some +1/+1 counter synergies, and this thing goes out of control. Doubling really does make things big. And with Trample, it means that this is a legitimate win condition. You will deal a lot of damage. This just has to eat a removal spell. And this is more of like a big, dumb, over-the-top creature for Hydra decks, for +1/+1 counter decks. And it was kind of not great that this was over $10. And so the fact that this is now under $10, coming in just over $7, and hopefully gets a little bit cheaper, means that this can go into more big, dumb green decks. Because that's what I want to do, make this thing big and turn it sideways. Next up, we have Exsanguinate. X black for a sorcery, each opponent loses X life, and you gain life equal to the life lost this way. Exsanguinate is an uncommon, but it was like a $7 uncommon, and now being reprinted, the price is going to drop down. This is fantastic in any black deck that needs a big mana finisher, because this hits each opponent. It's also going to gain you a ton of life because you're playing in multiplayer. So it's seen in life gain decks. It's seen as a finisher in many decks. And so Exsanguinate is just a solid staple that hopefully gets into more players' decks so that games can end and we can shuffle up and play again. I am super thankful for this reprint. It's Goldspan Dragon. It's now around $12, but at its height, it was as much as $30. So Goldspan Dragon has had a lot of ups and downs recently. Let me read the card. Goldspan Dragon is 3 red for a 4/4 dragon with flying and haste. Whenever Goldspan Dragon attacks or becomes the target of a spell, create a treasure token. Treasures you control have tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 2 mana of any one color. There seem to be treasures attached to tons of different creatures now. It feels like I can always have some treasures on the battlefield, and having a doubler for that is really good. It lets me have big explosive amounts of mana. But even if I don't have a massive amount of treasures already, Goldspan Dragon creates its own. And so having a beater that attacks and helps me save mana and ramp into future turns allows me to have that big play. And a lot of times commander decks need to deploy, a few things at once, use a lot of mana at one point in time, do this big over the top play to finally take out a player or save yourself or win the game. Goldspan Dragon does a great job of pressuring opponents and planeswalkers as well. I really like things that have utility, but also can turn sideways really well. This is a great card, and hopefully the price goes down and you can put it in your commander deck. Next up, we have Oversold Cemetery. It hasn't been reprinted since Onslaught. It was over $15, and it's getting reprinted immediately again in Dominaria Remastered. Fantastic. Okay, it's still worthwhile. Oversold Cemetery is 1 and a black for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 4 or more creature cards in your graveyard, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So if you meet this condition, it's almost like you're drawing a card every single turn and drawing a relevant creature. So like in a Marin deck or in a Mill deck or in a discard deck where you're gonna have that condition met, you're going to have 4 creatures in the graveyard. This is just like a better Phyrexian arena. So yes, it is way narrower than traditional black card draw, but in the right deck, this just creates its own engine where you get something back every single turn. And sometimes it's a integral piece to your engine, so you get more stuff from the graveyard, more stuff back, more stuff in your graveyard. It's really fantastic. And seeing a new reprint since Onslaught is really cool. All right, extremely excited to see the Walking Ballista reprint. Walking Ballista is XX for a 0/0 construct. Walking Ballista enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. 4, put a +1/+1 counter on Walking Ballista. Remove a +1/+1 counter from Walking Ballista. It deals 1 damage to any target. This is a combo outlet with infinite mana. If this is in your hand, you can cast it infinitely big and ping everything infinitely. Even if it's on the battlefield, by the way, you can still sink infinite mana into it and then make it infinitely big and win the game. There's also combos that work with it. For example, Heliod. If you have a Walking Ballista on the battlefield and give it lifelink, you can remove a counter to deal 1 damage, and Heliod will say, "Ha, you gained 1 life. life-linking, damage-dealing walking ballista, I will give you another +1/+1 counter. There are other synergies that work as well with blocking ballista, but something that combos with this many things needs to be sort of available to us. Not to mention working really well with +1/+1 counter decks, with artifact decks, with X-Spell decks. So a lot of commander decks really want this card, and I'm really excited to see it reprinted. Now less than $15, so great job. By the way, people seem to really be liking this anime treatment. So something like a Cold Steel Heart, which should be under $1, this anime version is $20. Karn Liberated, which by the way, used to be a great staple when decks didn't have proper removal. You'd throw a Karn in there and it'd be an exile spell. This Jumpstart version is $20, which is pretty cheap compared to other like Modern Masters or Double Masters versions. But ultimately, I think it's really cool that these Jumpstart decks, because they're themed, will help support certain commander themes as well. I already mentioned a few of them like X's and +1/+1 counters, but I also want to mention Lyra Dawnbringer supporting angels, or Muxus Goblin Grandee supporting goblins. Righteous Valkyrie supporting those clerics and angels, Ajani Strength of the Pride supporting all those life gain strategies. It's just fantastic to see all of the diversity in these different decks, but also the easy transition into existing commander archetypes. All right, that's it for my review of the reprints in Jumpstart 2022, but of course, there are more cards. I didn't talk about Massacre Worm. Was that a mistake? Tell me in the comments down below. And thank you so much for watching. I also want to thank my sponsor, Cool Stuff Inc. You can get these cards from them right now, and when you do, use the coupon code JUMBO5 to save 5% off your order. I also want to thank my patrons. They're amazing. They support me every single day. Thank you, patrons. And thank you for watching this video. Thank you for liking, subscribing, all that good stuff. I'll see you all really soon. Bye-bye.